Okay, welcome to Divine Anarchy. My name is Matthew Mansell. I am your host. You are watching this on the Voluntary Virtues Network. Okay. And before I go through what the show's about, I do want to apologize to the viewers here. I planned on doing a show or airing a show of an interview I did Wednesday with someone who had questioned or wanted to or had a rebuttal to the point that I made in the last episode or the last week's show. Unfortunately, Google didn't record, so I didn't have data to cut, edit, and to put it up to show you guys. Unfortunately, it's sad. I hate the fact that it didn't happen that way, but life is life. Things happen. So instead, I came across this article on Facebook. Actually, somebody posted it to one of the groups I'm with. So I could put in like several different groups. And I decided to actually write an article on it, or to do a show on it, rebut it, or what have you. It's an article on about.com, which gives you information about various sundry topics. But the stuff that it has on there I find that quite comical. So what this show will be about is to read through it and to correct the article, and we're going to read it, correct it when it needs correction, revise some of it, or even praise it when it doesn't need correction, right? When it gets it right. So let's go through this. First of all, I should have actually posted it down below. The website is that it found out is at about.com. The actual page is civil liberties, news issues, civil liberties. So it's civilliberty.about.com is where it's at. The title of this article is "What Kind of Libertarian Are You?" and which it is really dealing with the 10 types, the 10 different types of libertarians. And it's by Tom Head. Let me actually bring this up. Okay, so Tom Head writes an article detailing 10 types or 10 kinds of libertarians. Somewhat, I think, they overlap, or a few of them overlap. But he starts with, and that's a good picture. He doesn't start with the statist. He actually starts with the non-statist, with the anarchist. Generally, when libertarianism is introduced, it is introduced the reverse way around, the way libertarianism generally introduced, particularly by libertarians, myself included, that you have the libertarianism is about the non-aggression principle and application of it across the board, and that you have various kinds of libertarian. Generally, on the right, we would say there are 3 forms of libertarianism: classical, minarchist, and anarcho-capitalist, or free market anarchist, right? But he doesn't do this. He starts with the anarchist and concludes with the statist. Now, he also includes those on the right and on the left in with his view of within the spectrum of libertarians, because all of them tend to call themselves libertarian. So if they identify themselves as libertarian, he's including them. So the first one is Anarcho-Capitalist, which also generally were called voluntarist or free market anarchists, whatever. Okay, anarcho-capitalists are believe that government monopolized services that would be better left to corporations and should be abolished entirely in favor of a system in which corporations provide services as we associate with the government. The popular sci-fi novel Jennifer Government, Jennifer, describes a system that is very close to anarcho-capitalism. Now, the problem with this is a hundredfold. Really is. I'm not sure how popular the sci-fi novel is. Never heard of it, so I can't tell you whether or not the author does or doesn't describe such a system. Now, what I can say, though, is with the definition. It is true that as anarcho-capitalists, we believe that government monopolizes services. In fact, that is the very definition of a government. Everyone generally believes that the government monopolizes on certain services. Namely, they monopolize on the service of force. Government is, by definition, a monopoly or the perceived legitimate monopoly over the use of force over geographic territory. It's a monopoly on the perceived legitimate use of force over geographical territory. That's government. They have a monopoly on defense, property defense agency, or defense industry. We describe that to the police. They have a monopoly on defense from external invasion. We describe the providers of that as the military, or the branch of government that provides that. And they have a monopoly on arbitration, or they used to. That even someone is breaking out. They're now contracting that out to a few arbitrators here and there. But I'm not going to get into that much. But do they have a monopoly on arbitrating disputes, particularly arbitrating criminal disputes? They have an absolute monopoly on that issue. So any and all disputes, you must go to a federal court and put in writing what your complaint is, and the state will prosecute it, right? If Bob stole the TV from you, well, in order for Bob to be punished, files have to be charged. But by the way, it's not that files are being charged on the behalf of you. Files are being charged on the behalf of the state. So now the crime becomes a crime against the state, a crime against society. It's not even a crime against society, it's against the state itself. But so here now, it's a dispute against the state. So the government is the monopoly on all disputes, including disputes involving itself. I just wanted to know that. But that's not the main problem I have with this particular piece. The problem, and he then goes on, okay, they believe that government has a monopoly on these goods or services. But they want to dismantle that monopoly and grant these services, or allow these services to be provided for by corporations. This isn't true either, because corporations are a legal fiction. They don't exist outside of law, outside of what government has granted or has made. It's a creation of words put on paper, written by a bunch of lawyers, passed by voted on by politicians, and signed by another politician, and then given a stamp of approval by lawyers that sit on the Supreme Court. So, and this corporation is a government fiction which grants companies a certain protection, legal protection, such as protections against being able to be sued against, let's say, you own a business, you yourself personally can't be held liable for a damage that your company does. And the company can be held liable, but only up to a certain point. So these are examples of protections that are given. Other protection, other favors, or such as tax breaks and what have you, also apply. So that's what a corporation is. It's a legally granted protection racket. So what we would say as anarcho-capitalists that the services that government currently provides should be provided on the market by individuals and companies, or even syndicates or cooperatives. It should be by competing people competing and companies competing against each other for customers. So you would have your own private defense agencies competing against each other for customers to protect against theft or murder or fraud or whatever. You would have competing arbitration companies competing for customers who are in dispute to come and have them arbitrate or judge their cases. So these are examples of what we envision to be happening on a free market. A corporation, by definition, is a legal fiction. Not only is it protected, it also has restrictions. It's regulated by the state. So let's keep on going down. So after anarcho-capitalist, and I think his problem is he sees the company and corporation as mine. He thinks they're synonymous, but they're really not. There are, I think, companies that are not corporations, even in today's society. But anyhow, let's continue on. The next group is civil libertarians. Civil libertarians believe that the government should not pass laws that restrict, oppress, or selectively fail to protect people in their day-to-day lives. Their position is best be summed up by Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes' statement that a man's right to swing his fist ends where his nose begins. End quote. In the United States, the American Civil Liberties Union, or the ACLU, represents the interest of civil libertarians. Civil libertarians may or may not be fiscal libertarians, which you'll get into that in two blocks down. I'm not sure if I agree with the ACLU. The ACLU would somewhat represent civil libertarians, but only in that we're talking about what action the government can and cannot do. So they can't come in and arrest you without a warrant or whatever. So, in that respect. Now, the problem with it, believe that government should not pass laws that restrict the press selectively fail to protect people in their day-to-day lives. That's not exactly true. Civil libertarians just believe that government should not embarge and oppress people in their day-to-day lives. It's nothing to do with failing to protect people. Quite the opposite. It has everything to do with what the government cannot do against individuals. But furthermore, the problem with this, and I'm just going to criticize civil libertarianism, the problem with this particular category all by itself is that government cannot not pass laws that restrict the press or selectively fail to protect people in their day-to-day lives. It's an inherent trait of government. Government can only pass laws that restrict freedom of individuals, that oppress individuals. Um, with regard to failing to protect people, the Supreme Court has already ruled that the government does not have any obligation to protect individuals. So that's a big problem with the civil libertarian classification here. Yeah, and it's true that these people may or may not be fiscal libertarians, but generally they give, those who aren't fiscal libertarians are giving lip service to civil libertarianism. The next group is classical libertarianism. Classical liberalism. Classical liberals believe that the word of the Declaration of Independence, that all people have basic human rights, and that the sole legitimate function of government is to protect those rights. Most of the founding fathers and most of the European philosophers who influenced them were classical liberals. Here, the author makes absolutely, really no controversial statement. I can't. There's nothing really controversial. It doesn't go into further what civil liberals actually believe per se, outside that they believe that the role and function of government to protect rights. This is absolutely true. This is what classical liberals believe. But it says nothing about the limit they believe the government should have or the role of government to have. I would put classical liberals on about the same level as I would put paleo-conservatives at. So that personally, they have similar views of government. Not exactly the same, but similar. Anyhow, or the old right conservatism, maybe I should put in that frame. The next group is fiscal libertarians. Fiscal libertarians, also referred to as laissez-faire capitalists, believe in free trade, low or non-existent taxes, and minimum or non-existent corporate regulation. Most traditional Republicans are moderate fiscal libertarians. Yeah. Let's deal with this. Fiscal libertarians are also referred to as laissez-faire free market capitalists. Laissez-faire means live and let live, believes in no government involvement in the economy whatsoever. Do they believe in free trade? Yes, absolutely. Low or non-existent taxes. No, if you're going to be laissez-faire, you have to believe in no taxation, period. Low taxation, taxes are an interference of government onto the market. That is a barrier to free trade. The government interference of free trade. So you cannot be for laissez-faire and believe in taxes. And minimum to non-existent corporate regulation. Never mind that corporations wouldn't exist without government. Anyhow, yeah, you cannot be, again, for laissez-faire and believe in regulating markets. Regulations are the opposite of laissez-faire capitalism. It is government involvement and intrusion into the economy. So if you're going to be a laissez-faire capitalist, be a fiscal libertarian, you must be in favor of literally no government regulation of the economy. Now you could be a fiscal conservative and believe in lower taxes and minimal regulation, but you're not a fiscal libertarian. Most Republicans are conservatives; they're not libertarians at all. And even that, they're generally they talk the talk of free trade, but generally they walk the walk of socialism. And we'll get into the reason why that is, and maybe next time. So, all right, the next one is libertarian socialism. Libertarian socialists agree with anarcho-capitalists. Oh, so hold on. I skipped one. Then one right after fiscal libertarianism is geo-libertarianism. Geo-libertarians, also called one-taxers, are fiscal libertarians who believe that land can never be owned but may be rented. They generally propose the abolition of income and sales tax in favor of a single land rental tax, with the revenue used to support collective interests such as military defense as determined through a democratic process. If I'm not mistaken, Henry George believed in this. Maybe wrong on that one, but the problem is it's contradictory here. You cannot believe in, was there fiscal libertarians who believe that one can never own land? I don't get this. In economics, the land refers to about not just real estate, but also to sticks and what have you. So rivers but I suppose you mean you can own real estate, but you can rent it. How can you rent something if you're not owning it? It makes no sense. To rent something means that the person who you're renting it from actually has the legitimate claim of ownership over that scarce resource. So if I rent a car from you, I am saying that you are the legitimate owner of the car. I'm not. You are, and I am paying you to use your car. In this case, you have to see they eliminated all income and sales tax. Okay, no problem. But they favor a single land tax. Who collects this? Better yet, why is there a tax on land? I mean, if the government's collecting taxes on land, they're claiming to have ownership. A tax here in this case is that they are claiming to have the right to charge you rent for you to live on a piece of property, to charge you rent to live on real estate, right? Except they're charging you to live on it, they're claiming ownership of the land. If no one can own land, then governments cannot own land. And if governments cannot own land, then they have no claim, and hence no right, no claim over the land, and no right to tax it. Literally, you cannot have this belief that no one can own land and believe in a land tax. It's contradictory. Collective interest and democratic processes. Democratic processes. How would, if no one can own land, then how can the majority of people decide what to do with the land? I mean, or how much to tax on land? I mean, not even the collective can own land. I mean, if this is so, we take it logically. Libertarian socialism is the next one. Libertarian socialists agree with the Anarcho-Capitalists that government is a monopoly and should be abolished. So he's dealing strictly with left-wing anarchists. But they believe that nations should be ruled instead by work-share cooperatives or labor unions instead of corporations. The philosopher Noam Chomsky is the best-known American libertarian socialist. No, actually, not even. They don't believe that the nation should be ruled by work-share cooperatives. They just believe that services that are provided for by government should be provided for by the community and by cooperatives and labor unions and what have you, community boards and what have you. That there shouldn't be gigantic centralized government running everything. Rather, communities should make their own rules and whatnot. So the big problem here is that it's too vague and too broad. It doesn't take into account left-wing market anarchists. You have anarcho-syndicalists, anarcho-communists. All of these have various different views on how society should function, or how socialism should be achieved, or socialist means should be achieved, and how society should be run, or even how government is to be abolished, right? So they even have different views on that. Okay. Minarchism is his next view. Like anarcho-capitalists and libertarian socialists, minarchists believe that most functions currently served by the government should be served by smaller, non-government groups, but they believe that a government is still needed to serve a few collective needs, such as military defense. This is true for the most part. Actually, there's really not much of a controversial statement here again. By most services, they mean post offices, education, roads, and the whole lot. Social Security, Medicare, medicine, all of those functions should be provided for by the market. So they generally believe in related to capitalism, a free market, or to their fiscal libertarian, but they believe that fiscal libertarianism should only be limited to everything except the three areas that government should monopolize, mainly courts to arbitrate disputes, police to protect people from internal domestic bad guys, military to protect people against foreign invasion. That is what minarchists believe. Then you have, and really the chief advocates of this were Ayn Rand and Robert Nozick. Now we got three more here. Neo-libertarianism are fiscal libertarians who support strong military and believe that the U.S. government should use that military to overthrow dangerous and oppressive regimes. It is their emphasis on military intervention that distinguishes them from hating libertarians. CLO and gives them a reason to make common cause with neoconservatives. Yeah, the answer to this is that neo-libertarians aren't libertarians at all. They're rhinos, libertarians in name only. They're neoconservatives who may have got disgruntled with the Republican Party for some unknown reason and just decided to infiltrate the Libertarian Party and run on the Libertarian ticket. An example of this would be Alan Roots and Bob Barr. So these aren't libertarians. They're neoconservatives who got disgruntled with the Republican Party and decided to run on the Libertarian Party platform. Objectivism. The objectivist movement was founded by Russian-American novelist Ayn Rand, author of Atlas Shrugged and The Fountainhead, who incorporated fiscal libertarianism into a broader philosophy, emphasizing rugged individualism and what she called the virtue of selfishness. Okay, no problem here, but it says nothing about our role of government per se. So I would say objectivism is when it comes to government, it's minarchism. Really, they're really the same. Minarchism isn't necessarily objectivist. You can be a minarchist without being an objectivist and buying into the philosophy of Divine Rand. but it's kind of hard to do it in the reverse. Ayn Rand believed you should only have 3 functions of government, and those are court, police, and military. So she was a minarchist. She also believed in intellectual property, which is inconsistent with minarchism. But the last one is paleo-libertarianism. Paleo-libertarians differ from neo-libertarians in that they are isolationists who do not believe that the United States should support or become entangled in international affairs. They also tend to be suspicious of international coalitions, such as the United Nations, liberal immigration policies, and other potential threats to cultural stability. Yeah, okay, well, neo-libertarianism really doesn't exist anymore, really. It was just nothing more than a strategy to push libertarianism into mainstream by aligning itself with the paleo-conservatives. But overall, it's correct in stating that they're suspicious of entangling alliances and military intervention abroad. This isn't the same as isolationism. It is it's non-interventionism. Really, what it is. Paleo-libertarianism. Paleo-libertarians support the idea of free trade. So that's all I have on this article that I disagree with it on, and I think not only do I disagree with his assessment and some of his summaries of these groups, but I disagree with the idea of the types of libertarians. So that's why I wanted to comment on it. It is now past time, 2 minutes past time. So shalom, shalom. Thank you all for watching in. For those who have, and for those who will later watch it, thank you for watching. I am your host, Matthew Mansell. You are watching this on Voluntary Virtues Network. The name of the show, Divine Anarchy. It broadcasts live at 10 to 10:30 Eastern Standard Time, Saturday nights. Peace out. May God bless you.